We go? Okay. Members of the media, so happy to be joined by the winning connections of your Preakness 147th running here in early voting. Do you already have owner Mr. Seth Klarman as well as trainer Chad Brown with us? Jose Ortiz, jockey, will be joining us shortly as well. I am going to start with you, Mr. Klarman, here, if that's okay. I wanted to wish you a happy birthday. Must be quite the birthday gift to be back here with yet another Preakness winner.
Thank you.
Because tell me a little bit about what this means for you growing up not too far from here and then to returning to the scene.
You know, I've lived my adult life in Boston, but it's an incredible experience to come back to my hometown and have a chance to compete at this level. And Chad got the horse ready, and Jose gave a brilliant ride. It's one of the highlights of a career owning racehorses. Really extraordinary feeling.
And tell me a little bit about what was going through your mind whilst you were watching is when the gates open and then that final quarter.
You know, our plan was to consider going for the lead, and it looked like to me like he broke a tiny bit slower than the horse just inside. I'm not sure. But he looked like he was coasting to easy lead, and then the seventh horse just went. And Jose followed Chad's instruction, which was take the lead if they'll give it to you, but if somebody really wants it, let them go. Chad thought that might work out even better, and we won't know, but it worked out really well.
Oh, it certainly did. Oh, might as well straight away go to you, Chad. Of course, the strategy part was in a way already preconceived. I remember speaking to you beforehand, asking, were you going to go for the lead? And you were saying, perhaps not. When you were watching it, were you, of course, happy with the way it was unfolding throughout?
I was thrilled with it. We were prepared to go to the lead, especially the way the track was playing all day. It would have been foolish not to, plan on going to the lead and certainly not take anything away from the horse. But in working with this horse, and Jose's been instrumental as well, along with my staff, particularly my New York-based staff in the winter. This horse was there. They did a terrific job, I want to point out. And, when we've been working the horse, we give him a target, and he rates nice, and he fastens him and finishes him off well. I was convinced in the wood that he was waiting on horses is why he got beat. He got beat by a good horse, don't get me wrong, with a good trip. But, when you're doing this long enough, you can tell a tired horse from a horse that's waiting on horses. And, I can see it in his work sometimes as well. So I had relayed to Seth several times, hey, this horse doesn't need the lead. I'm not brave enough to take him back in a paceless race. But, if there's a target, he's going to be better. And, down the backside, we looked at each other, and he said, well, you got your wish. So, he runs, and it unfolded perfect.
And talking a little bit about his campaign, of course, resembles the campaign of your other Preakness winner, Clown Computing. What is it about going to the Wood Memorial and then giving them a little bit of time coming in there that is so effective?
Yeah, well, with both horses, it's also important to know that they're coming out of the wood and giving them time, but they're lightly raced horses. It's not like a horse that we gave time to out of the wood that also had 3 starts at 2, and it's their 6th or 7th start. This is a lightly raced horse. In both cases, that was only the horse's 3rd start. So, when you start, participating in the Kentucky Derby enough now, you realize what a tough race it is with 20 horses. And as the trainer, you have to deal with the aftermath when it doesn't work out. And sometimes it's not pretty. Those horses need time, physically or mentally. And it can really, cost you a good part of your 3-year-old year if you swing and miss. You could ship all the way over there, draw terrible, the weather, you name it. So you better go over there with a horse. Talking from a guy, I haven't won the race, but we've had a couple close calls, and I'm a student of it. Yeah, I feel you have to have a horse with some experience, and you have to be prepared for a bad post or a bump here or there or a sealed wet track or something. This horse just didn't have the experience. I mean, he's out there on loose leads. He didn't have dirt in his face, really. A nice horse, but to throw him in a 20-horse field would not have worked out well for him, I don't believe. So it really wasn't that hard a decision. There'll be Wood Memorials that will run in the Derby, but it just depends on the horse.
Terrific effort here, of course. Do we have, straight after the race, probably a bit early to call the plans here, but do we have any other targets later on down the line in mind with him?
Yeah, well, certainly a race like the Travers. I know it's just a tick further, but I really don't believe he'll have any trouble getting the 1.25 miles. And, growing up just, 20 minutes from Saratoga, Baltimore, native, that was his race today. The Travers would be for me, so that would be really at the top of the list. But there'll be some racing before that. We'll get him back to Belmont, assess him, train him a bit, and then start to map out a campaign that hopefully leads us to the Midsummer Derby.
And you mentioned before at the beginning,
Thank you. Thank you. You
quickly,
keep on sending me horses like this, we'll win the Travers, believe me.
Chad, you mentioned beforehand that he overwintered in New York as well. What is he like to train? He clearly seems to then take to it well and can go in any conditions.
Yeah, he's a cool horse. Again, I can't thank my staff enough, particularly the wintertime crew. I mean, he stayed there in the winter, and why? Because he's that kind of makeup. He was lightly raced. I didn't want to interrupt his schedule. Sometimes you ship horses down to Florida that are just getting started, and then you have to adjust to the, ironically, the humidity and the heat and such when he's just getting going. And the weather looked good, so I left him there. He's a big, handsome, burly. He's a bit. I said the other day to somebody, he's like a bar fighter. Like he's got a good mind on him, but he's gonna step into you if you get in his face. This horse, and he's got enough condition and enough strength and enough constitution about him to withstand the winter, the summer, different track conditions. You put him in company with a horse, or in a real stretch duel, like if he's on the right side of it today or on the wrong side of it in the wood, he's going to fight all the way to the wire. And you can pick up on this with horses like him when they're young. And he's just a really cool horse to be around. I'm so proud of him. He really did all the work today, and I'm so proud of him. He came over here in his fourth start, and he stepped onto the turf course, and there's everything going on. There's bands, there's this and that, and I didn't know how he was going to take it, and I'm so proud of the horse that he kept his composure and he did exactly what we trained him to do.
Congratulations again. We are also joined here by winning rider Jose Ortiz. Jose, of course, watching you ride after the wire, visibly emotional. Would you be able to put into words for us what that moment meant for you and what was going through your mind?
It's amazing. It's a race that is a dream come true for any rider, It's a Triple Crown race. Already won the Belmont, but I never won the Preakness before. We were very close with Good Magic. I still feel like he was the best horse in the race that day, but it was crazy conditions on fog, sloppy. And honestly, I didn't have the trip I wanted. Today, I had the trip I wanted. We plan it out and we execute with perfection, and we came out on top.
No, you did indeed. And tell me a little bit about the start and the trip that you had. I thought he broke pretty sharply, but we did see you let someone else take the lead.
Yeah, he's a very good horse. Out of the gate, he always been. He broke well, and that was the main thing. Break good, go forward. We knew that Armagnac had speed, and he never has passed a horse on his life, so we knew he was probably going to go into the lead, and he did. But we were ready for it. We executed the plan perfectly, like I said before.
And what was the feeling that he was giving you? Did you feel like you were sitting on a loaded gun, basically?
By the backside, it just felt like we have been drilling in the morning. We have been working him just next to a horse, and he was very relaxed. I was very confident passing the 5A pole. I knew I was sitting on a great spot. I took a peek back, nobody there. I knew my horse was ready. Chad had him ready. I've been working him, and he's been working with a very good horse on Miles D. I think he's a player on the older division, and we've been working with him. And my horse honestly been working unbelievable. And like I said, they deserve all the credit. They passed on the Derby. Not a lot of people would do it, and it paid off today.
Thing about Jose. So if you remember, he rode Zandon in New Orleans, and he had ridden early voting, a winner in the Withers. And when they're both going to run on the same day in the Bluegrass and the Wood Memorial, I just chose he's going to go ride early voting, and I made a change on Zandon. So I called him to tell him, and he never complained about it. He said, "Boss, I'll go where you tell me to go." That's it. So he was happy to ride early voting. It's hard to be taken off Zandon when they're on the same day, because we knew that horse probably going to win the Bluegrass and go to the Derby. He's one of the favorites. So that's how he is. He said, I'll go where you tell me to go. So he didn't win the Wood, but it was our feeling that's his horse. He went there for us that day, and that's going to remain his horse. It was never even a thought after the horse got beat to make a change. He went up there and rode him for us, and he rode him brilliantly. So I just want to point that out. Talk about being a team player. He doesn't give me any trouble with those conversations, and he's very nice to work with that way.
Thank you.
Chad, do you also take to perhaps the aspect of jockey knowing a horse and hence certain jockeys suiting certain horses, and that Jose suits early voting?
Yeah, I mean, not only you gain experience riding the horses, and when they come out and breeze the horses and such, it's a big advantage. With using jockeys in the morning, really most of the time I would use jockeys out of the gate or on turf works. I have great exercise riders. I'm so lucky. They do such a great job, and I'm out of a luxury of not having to have the jockeys out there working too much outside of some gate works. And again, on turf, I like to use them. But on this horse, we called an audible, and I wanted him to come out a couple times and work them. And it furthered the relationship, really. And particularly, I would not want to speak out of turn because I'm not riding the horse, but when he had a target down the backside, the way he worked the other day when I gave him a target of a good horse in Miles D, who was third in the Travers. And he was able to just, take him over in hand, and the horse was much more focused, we both felt, after the work. So I think it really paid off, and those are the little things in practice that you do.
Of course, here Jose Ortiz's opinion when it comes to riding early voting and being associated with him from the get-go. Do you believe that helped you, and what has that been like?
Yeah, I know the horse very well. I worked him out of the gate when he was a baby, even before he ran. And we always Chad been high on him. I like him a lot the day I worked him. And, I rode the first time out. And I rode the second time out on the Witters, and then I was able to work him, I think, for the Wood, or for the Witter, maybe I worked him. And then for the Wood, I just flew in. And for this race, I was able to work him twice. And, I was very confident. I was very high. I had to jump off Simplification, who ran a huge race. But I felt like I'm going to jump off a good horse to ride the horse that is going to win the Preakness. And I think going forward, this horse, I think it's going to be a better horse. It was a tough decision. It wasn't easy. The other horse is nice and run well. They gave me the opportunity to ride him in Florida, and I think we did well. We ran a very good fourth on the Derby. But like I say, I wanted to ride the winner of the Preakness, and I felt like this horse was working lights out, and I knew that I have a huge shot with this horse. And like he worked. If he stayed healthy, I knew he was gonna be a player big time on this race. So very happy.
The gut feeling clearly was right. Before I open the floor, before I open us up to questions here from the floor, just quickly, Mr. Klarman, tell me a little bit about the journey with this horse and what it's been like for you with him, being put through his paces and going with him, and now landing here in the press conference afterwards, winning the Preakness.
He, he wasn't the earliest developer. Chad was pretty excited about him all along, but of course you have to prove it on the track. And we were really excited. He initially, after his first race or two, wasn't fast enough to compete with the best 3-year-olds, but every race he got better. And we were pretty excited that he would continue to develop, and that's part of why we wanted to make sure he had enough time to continue to develop. And we're just so proud of him and, of course, this team.
Strategy that paid off. I'd like to ask the members of the media present here if you have any questions.
Mr. Klarman, can you just speak to your experience having Chad as your trainer and what sets him apart? Obviously, you guys have been very successful.
Chad's an extraordinary trainer, but he's really an extraordinary guy, extraordinary person. Chad's extremely hungry, and he works all the time. He never stops thinking about this, attention to detail, great desire to get better. And so there's a real opportunity, I think, when people that are like that take in information and they're always looking to improve. And that it's, Chad's a wonderful friend, but it's really extraordinary to see somebody, he has close to photographic knowledge. If you asked him about any of the horses, he knows the record, he knows where he wants to run them. He has brilliant spotting ability. He can figure out exactly what the right race is. I feel incredibly fortunate that we met, and that once we met him, we quickly developed confidence, and he ended up being basically our only trainer.
Seth, if I could ask you, when you got into the business of owning horses, was it a dream? Was it a realistic dream to own Triple Crown winning horses and to now have won twice here in Baltimore? Were that rates in terms of what your expectations were when you got in?
The first horse I bought was in partnership with a friend growing up, and I might have had to spend a night or two on the couch because my wife, who's here, wasn't thrilled with that, and it was a pretty inexpensive horse. It was not a dream. I didn't think about that. I think anybody couldn't realistically imagine they'd own horses. Horses are expensive, and you know, I didn't grow up with a lot of resources. But when I had the resources, a friend suggested that I join a partnership in the early 90s. We invested in a partnership, and then we said maybe we could do this ourselves. That's Jess Ravitch, who is why we're called Klarovich, and my first partner. And it just took off from there.
Seth, could you talk a bit about the process of acquiring this horse and what you guys thought of him early on that attracted you to him?
I think Chad could probably better answer some of that, but we have a great team. And Chad goes to the sales. Chad works with a team that he's assembled at the sales. We have a long list. We narrow it down to a short list. The horse needs to have a decent pedigree. It needs to be physically a horse that we think will sustain, you know, will be able to handle training and be healthy. And it has to be in the right price range. We're not going to pay any amount for a horse. So when you meet those three criteria, there's a chance we'll buy at the sale.
I would just like to add to that, for our sales team, to give some acknowledge Mike Ryan and his wife Mary. They're a huge part of scouting these horses for us and bring them to my attention. And our vet team at Root and Riddle, led by Scott and Debbie Pierce and all the other members there, are a huge part of our team as well. It's a tall order to go to the Keeneland September sale with 5,000 horses there and narrow it down to what we're looking for. And it's that's our big draft, like you'd have in any other sport. So they're really crucial people I just named in identifying and then vetting the horses and such. And the horse went down to Niall Brennan, another partner of ours on our team, for the early training. Him and his team did a fabulous job. Niall identified very early, even this was a later horse, that this horse had plenty of ability. And he's always liked them, and I want to give him credit as well.
Chad, what does this say about going through New York as opposed to going through Florida or going through Oakland or going through Louisiana?
Yeah, I've always felt that New York is a fine place to develop these kind of horses. I think a lot of it probably comes down to circumstance where the horses end up some years, and it looks to be a little slanted here or there, or this race is a poor prep, and there hasn't been one in 20 years, and this and that. But, you have a couple crops where that can all change, right? And I'm a native New Yorker. I'm very appreciative for NYRA and the facilities they offer us to train at year-round at all their tracks. And we've developed several horses there. Cloud Computing was another horse that wintered up there. So not only both of them run on the wood, they didn't even go to Florida. So it can be done, and I think it just depends on the horse and always just being aware of your environment where you're training these horses, and New York's a good environment.
Chad, good to see you.
Happy to see you.
Yeah, man. So, Zandon, early voting, they're running on the same day. You talked about the decision. Jose goes, and he says, wherever you want me to go, boss. But you're making a decision. What's in that decision? Why is he the right one for this one? Not because there's something there. I would love to hear what it is.
Yeah. Well, the first part of it was that early voting was coming off a win. So rarely do I take someone off a horse that won and let him stay in a horse that got beat. The horse didn't get beat because of him. The horse, Zandon, just jumped at the gate in the Risen Star and had no chance after that. I actually rode him very well to be third, and it helped us in the Derby that trip. So, but that's the first thing, and then furthermore, he's the only jockey he's had that horse. Not only he's coming off a win, I saw the relationship developing with those two. I wasn't sure he was a Derby horse, but I was sure he was a good horse and a Grade 1 horse. And I just know that's a partnership that I want to continue growing, developing that horse, and then I could figure out where I am with Zandan, who has a new rider every time he ran up till then. So that's really what it came down to. Yeah.
Jose's an extraordinary judge of pace. I think you saw that today in the 5th race with technical analysis. He was able to get to an easy lead, coasted around. And this race, that was the plan, and he started looking like that might be what he did. But when the 7 wanted it really badly, he knew it was fast and he took back. I think that just tells you in 2 races on a single day, the resume of Jose Ortiz. Really extraordinary.
I'll repeat it for you.
Oh, okay. My question, I would say, a couple of times it looked like you took a peek behind you as you were about to turn for home. Was that a little bit, you had so much horse, or maybe were you wondering where epicenter was?
One sec, I just have to repeat it so they upstairs know as well. A question for Jose. A couple of times you had to peek around, you'd have a look at other horses. Was that to see where the other horses were coming, or basically that? You had a lot of horse.
Both. Yeah. I knew I was on the right position. I knew we were going on a pace that was moderate. I don't know what it was. It felt like a 47 and change. I don't know. But my horse was doing it very nicely, and I was very happy with my position. Second of all, when we hit the 5-8, I felt like I have a lot of horse. And then I want to see where Epicenter's at. I want to see where Secret is at, because I thought he had a good shot, you know. But I didn't see nobody, and I said, well, I'm come by my time now, so I just felt better at that point, you know.
Were you surprised that the center was that far back?
Are you surprised that Epicenter was that far back, just for everyone upstairs?
I didn't see him, so I figured he was inside, so I said, all right. I just have to worry to whoever was coming inside of me to put pressure on me earlier than I want to. I knew inside nobody's gonna go there, because I had the horse in front of me and I had the position. Whoever was coming had to come around me. And when I took a peek back at the 3-8 pole, I couldn't believe it. I was just traveling nicely. I saw Saez coming. Saez was coming, moving. He was moving. And I felt like I was sitting on a lot of horse. Horse was ready. Chad had him ready, and I just went out there, did my job, and like I said before, I execute the plan we had. We talked about it, we had a plan, and we executed, and that's how you win races.
2 questions, Chad. First of all, when Jose came back, he was very emotional. What did you say to him when you first talked to him as he was coming back on the horse?
So I just said to him that he was well-deserved, this race. We talked about it in the paddock briefly. I gave him a leg up. I said, you know, you deserve to win this race. We thought Good Magic that day was the best horse, and it just got screwed up in the fog, and it was a weird trip, and the rain. And just, if I'd gotten a track like today there, I just don't see any way they would have lost the horse. And it just was unfortunate, bad luck for the horse, for our connections, for Jose. Since then, I've been telling him, you know, you're owed a Preakness, because I just felt like your partnership with that horse was very good as well. And I reminded him that in the paddock. So when he came back, that's the first thing I told him. I said, I told you, you had one coming.
And then the second question would just be, this is the second time that you've won the Preakness with horses that are lightly raced, followed a similar path, but can you just speak to, does that say anything to how you as a horseman have to train horses? Is that a change in the sport, modern era, or is it really come down to just the individual?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. It's a great question. So I definitely think now, horses, lightly raced horses, can reach, greater heights maybe quicker in their career, meaning in career number of starts. And they also appreciate spacing. I know a lot of people might not agree with that, some old-time trainers and such, but there's something to it when you look at the numbers. Not every horse, but in general. I also think it comes down to the individual horse. Like I said, I mean, it wouldn't be, I hope I have another Preakness winner, maybe it's in his 8th start of his life, and he ran a bunch at 2. There's no reason. I just spoke of Good Magic, who was a champion 2-year-old and was running back on 2 weeks rest. And I thought he was the best horse that day. And so I'll do it. It just depends on the horse, I think.
Also like to ask the members of the media upstairs if we have any other questions. I think that's it. Final question before we go. Where will we find the horse tomorrow? When will he be shipping out?
Yeah.
Opportunities for photos?
Yeah, sometime in the morning. I'm going to go back there and handle that right now. He was scheduled to leave quite early, 5 or 6 in the morning, depending on if the horse was healthy and such. So I'll probably finalize that in a little bit. There's a chance it could be a little later in the morning as well. So anyone's fine to reach out. Yeah, you could ask at the barn. We'll let you know.
Okay. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.